intentional, by the way, to give everyone a few minutes to join.
I love it.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning, everyone. Hi, Hector.
Welcome, Hector.
Hello.
No video yet for you. I don't know why, just so you know. There you go.
There.
Yes.
Very cool.
And thank you, Rihanna, for joining. It's been a while.
Anytime, more than happy to be here and excited to hear and learn.
Yeah. Hello, Jen.
How's everybody doing?
Good.
Great.
So nice to meet you, Jen. I've heard so many things about you.
Nice to meet you as well. I feel like we have with all
I know, totally. Awesome.
Hi, Hector. Nice to meet you, sir.
Hello, Jen. How are you?
Good.
I'm excited for the two of you to get to know each other better. We'll give it maybe just another moment and then we'll dive in.
And I will monitor questions for you, Cassandra, and also the guest list.
Oh, that's fabulous. And you know what, too? Let me copy and paste. I was thinking about maybe if you could screen share when we're talking about human scale cities, and then Jennifer's work, sharing your screen to show some photos on that. I'll send you those links right now.
Okay, sounds great.
And I have a whole lot to say because I'm a blabbermouth on this stuff. So I'm going to be going back and forth to my notes to make sure I don't. And if I am completely going in the wrong direction, which I often do, Cassandra, please say, this is what I really meant. We focus on. I have no problem with that.
This is not a problem. Let's see. And here's I'm sending Rach the villages one. I love this. There's this great photo of the greenhouse hub that Jen was part of, and it's such a beautiful image. I want to make sure we can share it. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. So I'm Cassandra Warney, for those who don't know me. And at Superstruct, I'm a partner who's focused on climate resilience and community. And today we're diving into intentionally building economically resilient developments, and more specifically, how can sustainable mixed use developments be successful financially? Because we've seen a number of eco villages and kind of sustainability led developments go up over the last couple of decades, and most of them have not kind of met their mark, or they failed. And we as humanity really need to figure out a way to have these be successful. And so at the heart of the conversation, what I'm hoping that we can keep on coming back to is, what would it take to really give investors their return on investment and really be able to maintain sustainability through design and growth. So I'm really excited to have Hector and Jen here. And just real quick before we dive in, because not everyone I think is familiar with Superstruct, I'll start off by saying that these roundtables we're holding, like this one, is to build community, to be able to foster creativity, and to learn together. And so as we're going through, and if you have a thought, a question, please raise your hand or put it in the chat. We very much want this to be a dialogue. And Superstruct, we're really focused on 3 generations ahead and thinking about the whole human and preparing for the rapid climate events that are ahead. We need basic human needs met. And in particular, I'm thinking across housing, energy, and food. And these are often very much siloed industries as they currently function. And so at Superstruct, we're really thinking about the ways in which they truly are an interconnected web, and where are there symbiotic opportunities here to bring these worlds together, and thinking about how to navigate disruptions that are ahead. And so Superstruct is a venture studio and consultancy, and we're scaling market-ready, sustainable solutions and deploying capital. And And my background is focusing on large-scale initiatives, often with government and nonprofits, and it's always been in systems that are typically siloed, where you bring together and say, you can have much deeper impact if you really think about your mutual goals. And I live in Brooklyn, New York, and most of my day-to-day is thinking through housing policy and development here in the American Northeast. And my role at Superstruct is really to think through human shelter and housing design, and where are there opportunities to integrate other systems that are also going through pretty big disruptions. And in particular, I'm thinking about the food and energy worlds. I'm really excited to be able to have Hector, who's developed human scale cities across Latin America. Cayalá in Guatemala is internationally recognized for its urban design, architecture, and innovation. And it's really designed to allow residents and visitors to live, work, and play. And it has sustainability elements that are weaved throughout it, thinking through anything from waste and water management to even how the gorgeous plants are grown and treated. And so, Hector, what I'm really excited to dig into today is that you deeply understand from a developer's perspective what makes sense financially and what so far has not made success financially. And I'm wanting to also give a chance to have you and Jennifer dig into kind of also the why of, because you are both visionaries. But I first want to also give background on Jen, who is the founder and managing partner of Seed to Source, which is an agribusiness consulting firm based out of Florida. And when we think about how we're going to have to feed the world, that really at the heart, is about regenerative and precision ag. And this is something that Jen brings deep expertise in. She's previously partnered with The Villages, which is in Central Florida, and is the largest master plan community in the United States, focused on older adults. And she successfully vertically integrated a controlled environment agricultural model with substantial community engagement. And she's also advised agri-hoods throughout the American Southeast. And so when I say agri-hoods, I mean typically master plan communities, residential communities who are interested in bringing in the farming and kind of garden world. So with that, that's kind of the background. So Hector, I'm wanting to hear from you. The vision of Cayalá goes back over 20 years. It's an oasis. You've also taken kind of this blueprint and thought about it scaling in other communities. So what is your why? You're building communities that are different than pretty much anywhere else in the world.
Well, thank you, Cassandra. It's a pleasure being here, and thank you for the invitation. Yes, we started developing in Guatemala City back in the 90s. We developed enclosed condominiums, and we thought that wasn't really what we were called to do here. So back in 2003, we did a master plan of the land that we own close to the Guatemala City. And in 2003, we envisioned building this large community, and I had the privilege of my family comes from Antigua, Guatemala, which is an old town here in Guatemala as well, and I experienced, walking to the market, walk into the cinema, or walk into a park. And so that's really what I envisioned, having something similar to Antigua here in Guatemala City. So we did that in 2003, and back then it was like almost a dream. I mean, it was a completely dream having commercial space in our land, not even talking about office space or hotels. And we started, we did a master plan in 2003, and we started building in 2010. And what we really envisioned doing is building the model city. What we envisioned, it was, we wanted to build a model city that it could be replicated either in Guatemala or somewhere else around the world. And we started building in 2010. We inaugurated November 2011, our first commercial phase. We started building the commercial area first. And then it's been just increasing since then. And it's been, I mean, what we've been trying to do is really bring in different types of residential space to Cayalá, and have really the different options of residential space in Cayalá, so we can bring either older people or younger people to Cayalá, which, I mean, it gives the area, the community, a different vibe, depending the day of the week or different hours during the day. That's pretty much what we've been doing, and up to now, we're almost half built, half our land built. We have one hotel running, one Marriott AC hotel running. We're building another Marriott hotel, and we have commercial space, office space. We have different residential spaces. We have events salons. So, I mean, we've been really trying to do build a big community around Cayalá. And you talked about financing, and it's at the beginning it was very hard, you know, to get the financing, you know, on really what it was, a dream. But now it's a lot easier doing it. We sell our we run square meters, not square feet. We sell our square meters of residential about 35% on a premium price over the rest of Guatemala City now. So, I mean, it's really paying off what we've done for the last 12 years, and really now people are really experiencing, and they want to be part of the big Cayalá community.
Thank you, Hector. And I lived in Antigua in 2007, and I completely, as you were talking about, you know, your experience of just being able to walk to the church and through the open spaces. I mean, it's such an easy place to have community, and wanting to create that in Guatemala City, which ultimately it's through design, like you're able to influence groups of people's behavior, which is something that we have to be thinking about in a couple of different facets as we move forward through upcoming disruptions. So yeah, so thank you for that, and we'll dig in deeper too on the financing side of things.
Okay.
Jen, can you share a little bit about your why, as well as adding on any other pieces on your background? I know in talking to you, I know wellness and just thinking about how to create healthy communities is a big part of that.
Yeah, so we like to define ourselves as the intersection of agriculture meets wellness. And when you take that approach, it really changes the way we look at agriculture. Most agriculture, including agri-hoods, or however we may get into how we define those, it's not built around a food as medicine approach. And that's really where we wanted to stand apart, because that's where our passion lies. So every project we've been involved with, and I've been in sustainable agriculture and wellness since 2000, so my whole career. So there's my age. It's got to be looked at different than just feeding mouths. It should be looked at as feeding mouths with the utmost of nutrient dense foods, and that's where we need to see a change. And we're so far from there. So as the beginning of my career, I got to go around. I was a global marketing manager for water technology supply company for precision irrigation for watering where it counts. So I got to travel around the world, seeing the cliche of what I'm going to say over and over, the future of food. And that was so-called agri-communities, agri-hoods, indoor ag mostly, that I knew was going to come to the United States, and I wanted to be a part of that. In 2005, I got finally got the strength to launch my firm, and I brought that employer as my first client, and then began building an army of people a lot smarter than me within an accordion style consulting firm. So depending on the project at hand, whether we're writing pro forma and go-to-market strategies, whether we are building design and construction of a facility, whether we're on the operations part and implementation, or we're C-suite, virtual C-suite as needed, all those projects that kept coming to us were different. And when you're a startup, you kind of take whatever you can get in the beginning as a consultancy then. So we really got to dip our toes in all things agriculture, from developers coming to us wanting an agri-hood approach, to manufacturers coming to us for raw ingredients and wanting to find year-round suppliers, and then we create that grower, to those that were coming to us to just find nutrient-dense ingredients they can count on for their wellness products. You name it, we've kind of been in all of it. And then we did continue to do a lot of community outreach, educating as to the why. So we participate in so many local food system projects and farmers markets and food deserts, and you name it. So it's been a crazy ride. At the beginning, what we call indoor ag, or controlled environment agriculture, that industry is only about 12 years old, one would argue, in the United States for commercial viability. It's being very much challenged right now, and I've been in the swing of that. That work that we were doing and speaking about publicly caught the attention of the developer of the villages. So they came to us, and I think it was more of they would like it as just another amenity. They are known as a fun and inclusive social, community that people really want to be a part of, especially 55 plus when people are feeling lonely, and turn it into also a place of wellness and healing. So we were to bring that amenity of the food portion. But what I ended up doing is pitching a plan that I've had developed with my firm over the last 20 years, which are all the parts and pieces of truly developing a local food system and having that engagement and with vertical integration. And when we say local food system, we can't be the only one in the system. So that's engaging the rest of the community, outside of the community at large, what have you. And by the time we were done with this, we ended up becoming the largest controlled ag facility in the Southeast, creating artisanal product lines with community engagement in that, utilizing our farm product and other farm products, selling other farm products under their farm name and letting them do what they do best, and that's farm, which created thus another sense of community, and involving the residents, which they call the villagers. I'm out there speaking to them 24/7. We're talking through the institutions, the schools and the universities, which are all part of this plant community. And that sounds funny. Why is there a school system in the villages? And that is for employees. So another big advantage, in a planned community is, I would call it workplace housing, right? So you need an institution, you need places for people to live, and they need to be engaged in this too. So not just residents engaging, but we need the businesses engaging, the institutions engaging. We need the team members, which are through various business sectors throughout the community, engaging. And so we did that, and it was about an 8-year run, and working 8 days and a week and 25 hours a day. And we kind of decided we had a legacy project and wanted to start our own. So that's where we reside today, building another a local farm system and another Central Florida community. But we still remain active as a consultants. So we still are continuing to consult with others that want to do the same thing or grow.
And Jen, I think what would be really helpful to learn is that as you're being approached by a developer to say, hey, we want to somehow incorporate agriculture, what's the potential win-win from a financial perspective? What developer potentially getting out of it, particularly if it's predominantly like whether it's residential or mixed use? And then what is, if the actual business, whether it's, you know, precision ag or something else, potentially getting out of the relationship?
So that's a really good question. And that's where, what is the goal of the developer? Is the goal for this to be an amenity? Is the goal for this to just sell houses and it's just another amenity? Is the goal to sell houses as an amenity and attract some businesses that support the economics of that initiative? Or the third is the goal to have that as the epicenter of the community, and the reason people are moving there is to be part of that lifestyle inside and out, and have supporting businesses, again, participating in the economics that are all part of that messaging. So at that point, we don't say agri-hub, we say agri-community and community at large. So it really is, what is the goal of the developer? Because you can go big and you go home, or you can go really small, and they're all going to be impactful, but they have limitations. So we went go big. So in our 9 acres, we were doing 7.5 million pounds of production a year round. So that is not just supporting that community. We became a revenue profit center. Then moving product throughout Florida, which also promoted the brand of wellness of the villages all throughout Florida, wanting people to want to seek opportunities there in their retirement or businesses. And that sounds interesting, but one of the largest read newspapers in the state of Florida is owned and published by the villages. So our messaging was getting out. And so we were able to really hone the brand of, this is Benjamin Button, you're getting healthier by eating this food in this local food system. And that's a whole different model. That model includes making sure our food was in all the institutions, all of the restaurants, all the retail grocers. We also had our own retail. That's a whole different model than it just being community garden plot and where so-called volunteer run, which never works, by the way. Do they want a dedicated, semi-producing operation that only is for the community? And not as a revenue driver? These are just the questions that the developer, we start with the developer. We actually have a checklist of those kind of questions. So it's really what is the goal? Because it can revenue generate. And there's many layers of revenue generation if done correctly, whether that is through not just the sale of the product, but through artisanal product sales, events, education sales. There's so many ways to monetize it. There's a way to monetize selling growing systems and supplies within the community. So the residents are growing at home as well, and businesses, as well as participating in the system you created. So it's kind of a multi-layered question, and it really is on the goals and needs of the developer.
Yeah, and I also think when I think of precision ag and greenhouses is the potential for energy resiliency through that model. But Hector, in thinking about your developments that have included sustainability components, I know Cayalá has, thinking through waste management, water management, composting, even with some of the businesses, you guys are taking byproducts and creating biodiesel. You've gotten really creative. I'm curious, what's been successful financially that you would just be very easy to say, I'm going to take this and I'm going to run with it and include it in my next blueprint, versus what are the components where it's been harder to figure out how to finance and to sustain?
Well, the advantage that we have is that we can start small, learn from it, and then expand it. So that's what we've done pretty much in all of our environmental initiatives. I mean, if you live in Guatemala, you understand. I mean, here the government or the municipalities, they don't really do recycling, and they don't really do water treatment. So for our country, having installed those initiatives here in Cayalá, it's a, and what we do is, again, we started with our water treatment plants, and now we charge every resident, and we charge every office space or commercial space a tiny portion of water treatment of the environmental initiatives that we have. So we finance all these initiatives through charging the residentials or the commercial spaces that are installed in Cayalá. So I mean, it's been a learning process for us, and it's a continuing process that we have still. We treat the water, and then we use that same water that after treatment to irrigate our gardens and our green areas, for example. So that saves us a certain amount of water that we don't use or we don't have to buy for irrigation. We use it after our water treatment plants. Same as for the recycling that we have. We recycle about 75% of all the trash that it's produced in Cayalá, and we sell all that. I mean, there's business to be done from trash. So again, that's like a learning process that we need, and we've been doing. I mean, it has been working for us, but I mean, we have to learn small and then just expand.
Would that be true if you were to scale up a new community, a new city? Are there any sustainability elements where you think you've kind of figured out the model in Latin America, or would you still need to start small and figure out?
No, I think we know how to do it now, and we're expanding our services to our surrounding communities as well. Today we process about 2.6 tons of trash every day. So I mean, we're up to that point that we know how to do it, and we're expanding our operations, to impact other communities around us. And we're bringing more people that are interested into learning what we've been doing as well. Also working with universities, and having them work along with us to teach students and have students learn of all the initiatives that we've been doing, and have that experience and working on something that really works.
And I know one area that's outside of the human scale cities but it's of particular interest, is your family's sugarcane farms are generating about 15% of the energy for the electrical grid for Guatemala, which is essentially proportional to what the Dutch greenhouse hubs are doing for the Netherlands. They're also generating about 15% of electricity for the Netherlands grids. What was that process in terms of how your family decided to focus on that and build on that? Because I do think, as we're thinking about the future of sustainable mixed use communities, It's figuring out a way to combine some of these pieces where that's an insane amount of energy that could be directly tapping into and potentially financially supporting other types of sustainable futures within within a lived community.
Yes, well, I have the privilege of being raised on farming. Before I built Cayalá, I worked at a cattle operation in Nicaragua. So I mean, it's land for me. It's what I love, and that's where I was raised, and that's why I have a great respect for land and planning. And yes, we have my family owns a large sugarcane mill here, and we produce electricity from biofuel. Biofuel comes from the waste of the sugarcane process. We burn the fiber and then we produce electricity. And we also have hydroelectric plants. So yes, we produce about the 15% of all the energy that's produced and consumed in Guatemala. And that's a great business for us. In Guatemala, the regulation for energy production or electricity production it's very it's regulated, but it's really open to whoever wants to install an electric plant to do it and sell it to the grid. And we've been producing electricity since 1986. So and we've been building over that, and right now we're one of the biggest energy producers in the country. And so that's I mean, in itself it's very financially it's very stable and very profitable as well.
Yeah, and I think a lot of the thinking that you and your family applied to coming up with ways in which to generate multiple revenue sources, but also in a way that actually gives back to not just, you know, the earth through kind of, you know, with the soil treatment and so forth, but also thinking about the community at large and electricity needs. And yeah, I think that as we're thinking about building resilient communities, figuring out how to connect some of these dots, because there's going to be ways in which finances might not make sense in one way, but if combined or flipped, they will. And so, Jen, I am curious for the different controlled environment ag projects that you've been part of, what has the energy source looked like? I remember you mentioning for the villages, it's like you used about as much energy as a small municipality. And just kind of in background where my brain is going on this is that in the Netherlands, the greenhouse hubs, that's predominantly cogeneration through natural gas and solar panels, but this can be done differently using different sources.
Yeah, so with the villages grown, we came, you know, after everything was planned, and we were put on property of which it didn't make sense to put homes at the end of the day. Little did we all know that we were last on the grid in the cooperative, and yet requiring like a hospital energy needs of a hospital. And the developer, I would say alternative energy and recycling of energy and all those kind of systems that we would do in the future with a blank slate, we had to battle all that. So we didn't have that at that we could control. So learned a lot through that. One of the things we learned is always speak with the energy provider first before building. Very, very big lesson we learned. And it sounds like it's obvious, but you have some of the biggest controlled ag companies throughout the US that learned it the hard way and fixed it on their second operation. Getting involved with just not just energy, but other resources needed, water in particular. So we would do a lot of things. If we were going to say we're starting from a blank slate and working with a developer, that would be one of the first things we would tackle is are we controlled ag, which means we would have year-round profitable growth, meets precision or regenerative agriculture, which takes a little longer depending on the location because you're healing the soil at the same time, using less resources. But you have to have that balance if you actually want to monetize and investors want to see a quick return. We would very much come up with energy plans. One of the things we ended up doing when we were in full production is crop energy plans. When does a crop need energy? When does it not, to power our lights and what have you? And we started getting more efficient at what we were doing. Again, we were the first to do this. So we learned a lot of lessons. There wasn't a model for us to follow. So, and I think that's why we always say we make good consultants because we already have the scars. So energy for sure, on that. And then, depending on where the facility is, water. And that's another thing that is forgotten. That sounds like you didn't forget about that at all. Access to water. Are you a closed loop system, which you generally are, in controlled environment, which makes it a lot easier. If you're regenerative ag, how are you going to water those plants using precision agriculture, which really means watering where it counts to the root and not as you know, not wasting natural resources. So it would be a very big collaboration next time as to, are we here for profit? Well, then we're a CEA meets regenerative, and what are those energy load needs, water needs, what have you. And we would talk about that from the beginning and not at the end.
Yeah. Yeah. And what I'm excited about is the potential for in the coming years to be able to have that intentional conversation on both sides as we're thinking through what types of developments do we need to be creating. So I've done all of the questioning so far and want to open it up to see if anyone has questions for Hector or Jen, or just kind of thoughts or observations. I know Rach, Andrew, and I had a really powerful conversation with Ari on Friday, and I know he's been thinking deeply about a lot of these different pieces. So I'm going to call on you first to see what thoughts are bubbling up. Oh, and you're on mute.
I just asked you to unmute, Ari.
There we go. Got you. First of all, it's an honor and a pleasure to meet all of you. And what you're all speaking of is so quite substantive in sustainable design development. And for those who don't know me, my background is in boots on the ground, off-grid development, predominantly in the world of Earth ships, which are completely self-sufficient, autonomous structures that generate their own energy, capture their own water, and produce their own agriculture. When we combine these things into communities, they become very powerful resources regionally. They also utilize localized resource, localized labor force, and that is also a huge economic generator for any region. But what I did, this was 25 years ago, was look into sustainability as scientific method and how we can really dissect sustainability and then reapply it to almost any field of interest, whether we're talking about agriculture, architecture, water management, energy. This is basically an equation that we can use. This equation can additionally be extrapolated into supporting laws and policies as we move forward in a significant way, in a concrete way, that we can prove X, Y, Z. This is the answer. And so as I listen to all of you here who are quite accomplished in what you do, I'm actually just quite in awe. And having been recently introduced to this group, so many questions I have, but really, I think my role right now is to sit back and listen. Cassandra, I do appreciate you introducing me to the group. Again, I'm processing kind of analytically and what we are all here trying to accomplish. So that's just a little introduction and great appreciation to all of you. Such a powerful group, and I would love to pass the baton to the next person who might have a more poignant question, more specific question, and then I can circle around it another time. So thank you all.
Thank
Ari,
you,
I
Eric.
love your work. It's amazing. So great to meet
you. Thank you.
Hello there. My name is Electra Jarvis, and I actually co-founded Good Food Solutions with Mary. She has been, I'm actually a recent veteran of the indoor agriculture, precision agriculture and Bowery farming, which just recently shut down 2 weeks ago, completely shut its doors. And I was head of agricultural operations at the time. And yeah, so, just kind of getting back into the swing of, my original passion, which was in smaller farms in communities. And so Mary invited me to join you guys today. And so I was just curious, Hector and Jennifer, if you guys have worked in hospitality, so or hospitals or things like that, where, in hotels or restaurants and things like that, and if they're what has been your experience, if any, trying to work with those particular industries?
I definitely have. So we're a farm to institution approach as well, because you can't be food as medicine without institutional buy-in. So that was my first target market for the Villages Grown, was to get our product into the hospitals and schools. And then not just within the villages itself, but externally, because I knew we were going to be building the brand through Florida. And that takes a lot of programming. Education. You're not just teaching the doctors, you're teaching the rest of the team. There has to be buy-in. It's not just food as medicine, and you can go to their cafeteria and they're feeding you, I almost said a distributor, just product that comes from everywhere. So it's a very big gap there. And so that was part of the strategy. The other part of our strategy was making sure when we were working with retail grocers, if we were saying we're food as medicine, we grew multiple crops, that someone had access to all of our products in one place. So we negotiated that we had our own 8-foot sections of all of our product in each of one of our retail grocers, such as Publix and Winn-Dixie. So now you've got a food as medicine coming from the institution, and now you have the accessibility of it at the retailer. We also made sure within the institutions for the grab and goes that we were part of that message as well. We made sure we were in the food service component of those institutions, both universities and hospitals and K through 12. So if you can't just be in one layer, it has to be a full program, and it has to be a full program to monetize as well, where you're just spending your time marketing a product that nobody has a connection to. As far as restaurants, it was kind of almost mandated that restaurants carried some form of our product in the community. Sometimes they only ordered once and kept us on their menus, which is one of the hardest things to do when creating local food systems and food ag operations, as I'm sure you experienced, is working with restaurants who say they're farm to table, but they're farm to fable. And they're utilizing your product buying once or cherry picking your product, and then charging a high price point. It's extremely hard to police, but it's all through education. You educate that consumer, they're going to ask those questions when they're in those moments to the restaurateurs. Part of our other approach is we had our own distribution for our institutions, because we wanted to make sure we were there with any questions that could be had when we were delivering product. We were training, we were seeing what was going on, and to make sure farm to table didn't go into the institutions as well. And then we worked with our distributors, and we followed top sales force. We would train, and I would personally go to their top clients, restaurant holding groups, what have you, show them our product, because the proof was in the pudding there, and then invite them back to our farm. So it is, I was on the road a lot, implementing those programs, and they're not overnight. So stakeholder buy-in is huge. If you're building a local food community, there better be touch points throughout the community, not just, I see a farm over there, you've given me a farm plot that I can volunteer at. We made it a lot grander. There's living walls throughout the community, some edible, some not, but it's still part of our message of sustainability, health and wellness, tying it in. There's edible trails throughout, so it's thematic at that point. So that's how we built that brand, and it was very difficult, but it can be done, especially when the intent from the beginning with a developer is food centric and not as an afterthought. I hope that answered your question. I'm sorry.
Great. Yeah. And we've worked with restaurants in a way that we partner with a local university here, and we collect the cooking oil that they use, and we process all that cooking oil back in the university, and they produce biofuel, and that's or biodiesel, and that's the diesel that we use for our machinery, our maintenance machinery. So that's a small program that we have, and we've worked with restaurants, the local restaurants in Cayalá, and yes, it involves a lot of education towards the cooks and the people that work in the restaurant to put all this oil in the recipients, and the right recipients, in order to allow us to process that oil and produce biodiesel. And that's really my experience, my only small experience that I have with restaurants.
I'm also,
Thank you both.
yes, thank you for that question. And yeah, I was just real quick on the Bowery piece. Bowery is what kind of first got me interested in the controlled environment ag piece. So even though it's really sad to hear about their closing down, it's I'm really excited about thought leaders such as yourself who now have this expertise and what the industry is going to do next for precision ag. But Hector, to go back to the development side, you're having a lot of success because of what you've been able to develop right now. You know, you're looking at, I think you mentioned like a 35% premium over elsewhere in Guatemala City. You have, and I imagine also in like future blueprints, you're wanting it to be a place where people want to come to spend at hotels, restaurants, potentially spas. And I'm wondering in the future if there's an element to be able to center something like precision ag that would be able to give nutrient dense food, you know, guaranteed supply across the year, while also thinking about the potentials on the energy side, which, you know, you could slice and dice in a number of different ways. But that's what's bubbling up for me as I've been listening to you and I've been listening to Jen, and curious what your thoughts are.
Yes, definitely. We have pretty much, it's one restaurant that's really active on what Jen said, you know, farm to table initiatives, and that's one thing that we have, that we want to work with our community as well. Back in the 80s and 90s, we donated about 45 hectares of land to the government to be kept as a green area, I mean, we envision this being a big park, you know, and people go in there and really have some green area within the city for them to enjoy. But really, the government hasn't done anything up to now. So we're working on having the administration of that area, and that's one of the initiatives that we want to do in this land.
Yeah. And I feel like we still haven't found the sweet spot yet on how to bring these different worlds together. It's like, Hector, you're from the perspective of building these human scale cities where people feel safe and open and want to partake in all of the fun with the movie theaters and all of that jazz. And Jen, you're kind of coming from the perspective of looking to the future of what we need to do to be able to continue to grow food, thinking through how do you engage with folks so they know what to ask when they're sitting down at the restaurant or they're looking at the labels. And right now, like these worlds in most cases are operating kind of in different worlds. And I just think in the future with flash flooding, you know, like various types of natural disasters, and then also, frankly, like some unexpected government shifts and so forth, we're going to have to really rely more on what's available locally. And so I know Andrew and Rach are thinking about is what are the different ways in which we can start having more dialogues like this across these different industries, because I haven't yet heard like a win-win situation of why you could get a whole bunch of developers really excited about potentially integrating precision ag. But I think it is the way in which we probably as humanity should be thinking. So yeah, I don't know, Hector, if you have any brilliant recommendations for us. But that's
Well, my experience is that most of the developers, one of the things that we do is we look long term. It's again, Cayalá. It's been 12 years since we inaugurated. So it hasn't been financially stable since the beginning, but we look long term, and that's really what we're our financials are. Most of the developers they look very short term. They want to, at least here in Guatemala, they want to jump in, build a building, sell it, and move on to their next building. They're not really looking into building something, building community, or looking long term, or building something that's sustainable and environmentally friendly. So I don't know. I think it's a mind change that we need to have as developers.
You're also making me think of here in New York, there's a number of developments that are happening in places like the Rockaways, which is a beach community, and in 30 years, it's not going to be a community. And so how do we help developers see the long term in a moment in which financially they're going to be rewarded for continuing as a status quo?
And I think, us as developers, we have a social responsibility, but because what we do is, it's not something for 3 years. The buildings that we build, they're there for 50, 100 years. So whatever we do or whatever we build, it's going to be there for a long term. Even if we sell it and move on to the next one the next day, it's going to be there. People are going to live there. People are going to work there. So I think developers have really a social responsibility on doing building community and building something that really adds to the community.
Hector, can I just interject? I know we only have a few minutes left, but I think this is a really interesting topic for what we were talking about the other day, related to kind of being one with the environment and considering that we're not living on the environment or on the earth, we're actually living amongst the earth, and what we're building is for generations to come. So I wonder, from an ROI standpoint, like, you're thinking about it almost dimensionally, that it's not just like a financial ROI, it's actually a community ROI, it's a experience ROI, it's a relational ROI, and all of those elements come in to facilitate a much larger opportunity long term. Because really, let's call it wealth, is such a generational thing. It's 100 years and then it's gone.
Yeah.
But if there's a real opportunity to build alongside of community, it changes the dynamic. That's what I hear coming from your voice.
Yep.
Actually, I have a quick question to piggyback on that. I know we only have 2 minutes. Given the community aspect of things, so like our company at Green Food Solutions works with developers, we put farms and buildings. We're actually a service and training company, and we service the farms. Now, when we're considering in our models, like, and talking to the developers we talk to, how is it for you guys? Like Jennifer, Hector, what's the, like, how do you incorporate food access? How do you incorporate the affordability? So it is addressing communities, because I know oftentimes, like in some of the luxury buildings we're in, it's luxury buildings, right? So like there's certain communities we are addressing. We are also addressing like correctional facilities, hospitals, things like that as well, to diversify the communities we're touching. How does that work for you guys?
Hector, I'll let you, do you want to?
And
That's a big question.
please. Yes.
It all comes back down to who are you and what are you trying to achieve as a developer? Because as a developer, you can also not just sell houses, but sell an operation. So it starts with a controlled environment ag meets regenerative ag or precision ag, which you need, but one's outdoor, right? Semi-protected, one's indoor, and you need both. One's year-round production, bringing in money. One's seasonal. That becomes an operation itself that can be not only monetized, but then sold by the developer. So those are the kind of things that I think we can think about from the beginning, and make sure you have benchmarks that it's not just we build it, they will come, and you have a buyer of that operation. You have an intent for an interested party down the road, and you're meeting those expectations from the beginning and proving its success. And then there's a path off. So that's one way to really monetize and bring food to the community, and it's successful. It all comes down to how you're going to monetize. And then the other question is, when we're talking about agri-hoods or agri-communities, and it's just as an amenity, who's paying for that? Are you putting that into your HOA fees? Are you putting that into your community development fees? And those little hybrid, two different things, but agriculture doesn't sleep, it lives and breathes. And when you're saying a community, they want to see perfection all the time. That takes operational teams, which has always been left out of the equation. It has to be a business unto itself. On a small scale, you have to have a team that's ever evolving and taking care of community gardens, what have you, because volunteers don't work. And then on a larger scale, that's a whole different model, but you can have them intertwine with each other, where the actual business operation is in there in the background and it's cute, but it has nothing to do with amenity. But it seems like it interacts, which is exactly what we did. If that makes sense, if that answers.
No, that does. That's really great. Because I don't know if you know, but it's like none of the food, all the food is free. And then the only way that we've been able to manage it with the customers that we have, like corporate offices or co-working spaces that have farms that like we sell the food, is like we actually literally write it in our contract that they can't sell it for more than half the price of what a hydroponic, clamshell would be in a grocery store locally, like, so that we can monitor the food affordability side of things. But I was curious, do you guys do it contractually or how that lives?
It's all different ways. I think from an HOA perspective, somebody wants something in return. Like you have full service in your HOA, you're not getting something in return. So they want to know what is my return when you add this into my fees? So it becomes CSA. So they're getting a box a week. And that kind of helps help manage those expectations, but also you have other product to monetize and another revenue stream or distribution outlet. And that depends on how large you want to be. So there's lots of ways to get creative. It all goes back as who does the developer want to be? And then you come up with those solutions. How does the developer want the community to live, breathe, feel, and interact with agriculture?
Yeah. Thank you, Jen. And I know we're just over time. I don't know, Hector, if you have anything to add. Want to be respectful of folks' time.
No, I really don't have an experience on that, so that's. No.
Yeah. Well, what I'll end with is Viana had to jump, but she made an interesting question in the chat, which is curious as to what data return on investment has been the priority to track when integrating circular solutions. So something for us to think through. Thank you so much, everyone, for your time and your thoughts, and looking forward to staying in touch and continuing the dialogue.
Thank you again, Cassandra, and everyone. I mean, it's been an honor participating on this workplace and sharing, I mean, our experience. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. And we have a
Have a
lot of
great
good
day.
work to do.
Bye.
Thank
What you
you.
guys are doing is extraordinary. Thank you both.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
And I'd like to hear more about what you're doing as well.